My Mother at 66 by Kamala. In the poem My Mother at 66, Kamala explores mother-daughter relationship and includes the themes of aging, growing up, separation, and love. The poem also depicts the helplessness and aspirations of the young generation. The poem also portrays the different stages of life and how everybody grows old and faces various situations that life throws at them. So, dear students, let's understand the inner workings of the poem. Driving from my parents' home to Cochin last Friday morning. In the first line of the poem, the poet begins by telling the readers that last Friday morning she was driving to Cochin with her mother sitting beside her. Here you will notice that the use of the phrase last Friday morning is not just to depict a day but also to show that it is past now. In other words, the poet uses this phrase in order to tell that time never stops. But now the time has gone. The day has gone and her mother's youth is also over. Thus, in the very first lines, the central theme of the poem is revealed. Moving on to the next line, I saw my mother beside me, doze, open mouth, her face ashen like that of a corpse, and realized with pain that she was as old as she looked, but soon put that thought away. In the next line, the poet discusses the sad condition of her mother. According to the poet, her mother seemed to be in a light sleep, and while she was sleeping, her mouth was a little open. That states a helpless state. She compares her pale and ash-like face with that of a corpse. This sleeping form of her mother reminds her of the fact that her mother was very old and she was approaching her end. This realization for the poet is very painful as she cannot live without her mother. In these lines, one can sense the love of a daughter for her mother and her fear of losing her. In the next lines, the poet says that she looked out at the young trees sprinting, the merry children spilling out of their homes. With this line, we find the poet's attempt to escape the painful experience. To avoid this sad situation, she looks out of the car and sees young trees that seem to be running backwards and the merry, happy children playing out of their homes. Both the trees and children show the growing and energetic stage of one's life, which according to the poet is the stage of merrymaking. Hence, in a way, the poet finds relief at the representation of young age and tries to escape there. Now, if we compare these lines with the previous ones, we find that the poet tries to contrast old age with youth, where the old age represents helplessness and one cannot get relief from it as it continuously reminds one of death. On the other hand, young age is full of joy and ecstasy that symbolizes strength, vigor, and happiness and gives a sort of relief. In the next lines, the poet says, but after the airport's security check, standing a few yards away, I looked again at her, wan, pale as a late winter's moon, and felt that old familiar ache, my childhood's fear. In these lines, the poet says that once she reached the airport, she stands at a distance from her old mother and again gives her a look. And now again, she finds her mother to be pale and old looking. Here again, the poet compares her mother with the late winter's moon, whose glow is dimmed by the mist and fog, making it appear pale, dull, and lifeless. And now, the poet is reminded of her childhood fear of losing her mother. With this fear, she suffers the same pain now as she suffered in her childhood. With these lines, the poet reveals that the fear of losing one's dear ones always remains, though it is suppressed with time. Not being able to do anything about it, she says in the end, but all I said was, "See you soon, Amma." And all I did was smile and smile and smile. In the final lines, the poet is unable to bear the pain and find a solution to her fear and pain. But she bids goodbye and says, "See you soon, Amma." And ultimately puts a fake smile on her face where she says, "All I did was smile and smile and smile." These lines of the poet are quite ironic, and so are the things that she does. While bidding goodbye to her mother, she says, "See you soon, Amma," though she knows that maybe she won't be able to see her again as her mother is so old. And again she smiles and smiles, though she is in grief and sorrow. Therefore, these lines depict the irony of life. Life is full of false promises, fake smiles, and temporary joy, whereas death and loss are ultimate, and its fear remains in one's mind right from a young age. Thus, the poem My Mother at 66 begins with a mourn over old age and ends with mourning over the whole life. This brings us to the end of the discussion of My Mother at 66. Thank you for watching, and do like and subscribe and share if you like the video. And do check out their coming video that would be on the use of poetic devices in My Mother at 66. Thank you.